Hera is probably the goddess who has been cheated on most often and has been unfaithful, which contrasts with her function as the goddess protector of marriage and guardian of married women, while her husband, not faithful and not loyal to the goddess, sought to spread love and affection to as many women as possible. Zeus did not care much about marriage to Hera, and much of Hera's cruelty stemmed from the jealousy and pain caused by Zeus's numerous infidelities. As a faithful wife, Hera felt constantly humiliated by her husband's affairs, which led her to take revenge not only on Zeus, but also on his lovers and descendants. At one point, she became so unhinged that she would punish for the sake of punishing, and would do evil deeds just to spite herself a little. Everything she could not do to her husband, she would make mortals and other gods pay for it. I'm not going to talk about all the horns they put on Hera. I'll leave that for another video. In this one, we are going to see some of the craziest revenge stories of Hera, the most toxic goddess of all times. One day, Zeus and Hera found themselves in the middle of a heated argument. The subject was a curious one. Who enjoyed sex more, men or women? Unable to reach an agreement, they decided to look for someone who could offer an unbiased perspective. They chose Tiresias, a mortal who had experienced life as both a man and a woman, making him the ideal candidate to resolve their dispute. Tiresias's transformation had occurred years earlier when, in a chance encounter, he had seen two snakes copulating, and, by striking them with his staff, was transformed into a woman. He lived like this for 7 years, until, meeting the snakes again and striking them again, he regained his male form. This singular experience endowed him with a unique perspective on the nature of men and women. When summoned by Zeus and Hera, Tiresias listened attentively to their arguments. Upon reflection, he answered truthfully that women enjoyed the sexual act more than men. This answer, though truthful, infuriated Hera, who felt insulted and belittled by a mortal's revelation. In a fit of anger, Hera decided to punish Tiresias by blinding him. Darkness closed over him, depriving him of his sight, a severe punishment for his honest intervention in the divine dispute. Zeus, although he could not undo the punishment imposed by Hera, wanted to compensate Tiresias in some way for the injustice he had suffered. Moved by the desire to balance the scales, Zeus granted Tiresias the gift of prophecy. This gift would not only compensate for the loss of his physical sight, it would also grant him a deeper and more far-reaching insight into the future and the mysteries of the world. It also granted him an exceptionally long life, allowing him to live for many generations and become one of the most respected and consulted prophets in all of Greece. One could say that Tiresias was even lucky. His mistake was to be honest, just as Procris and Cephalus's mistake was to love each other. Hera had observed the happiness of Procris and Cephalus from Olympus. Procris, daughter of the king of Athens, and Cephalus, a young hunter, were madly in love and living happily. Why could the two of them love each other madly, while Hera had to put up with Zeus' continuous dishonors? Knowing human nature and its weaknesses, Hera devised a plan to instill jealousy and mistrust in the couple's hearts. The goddess approached Cephalus, disguised as a beautiful young woman named Eos, the goddess of dawn. Using her divine power, Eos seduced Cephalus, making promises of eternal love. However, Cephalus, being faithful to Procris, resisted the temptations of the goddess. Frustrated, Hera Eos planted the seed of doubt in his mind, hinting that Procris might not be as loyal as he believed. Eos's whispers echoed in Cephalus's mind, and though he initially dismissed them, distrust began to grow. Determined to test his wife's fidelity, Cephalus devised a plan. He told Procris that he was to leave on a long hunting trip, but in reality, he hid near his home to observe her. Procris, oblivious to her husband's plans, was at home, worried about Cephalus's absence. During her vigil, she began to hear rumors of a woman who had tried to seduce her husband. Fearful and suspicious, Procris decided to find out the truth for herself. One night, Cephalus, hiding in the bushes, watched Procris leave the house with an anguished expression on his face. Driven by jealousy and paranoia, Cephalus believed that his wife was going to meet a secret lover. Without thinking, he picked up his javelin, a magical weapon that never missed its target, and hurled it at her. The javelin flew through the air, finding its target with deadly accuracy. Procris, mortally wounded, fell to the ground. Cephalus, seeing what he had done, ran to her, only to hear her last words. Procris, with her dying breaths, expressed her love and loyalty to Cephalus, revealing that she had gone out to find him because she had heard rumors of his infidelity. Cephalus, devastated by the truth and consumed by guilt, embraced his wife as life faded from his body. Hera, from Olympus, watched with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. But there was another case in which the goddess felt neither sorrow nor regret and enjoyed her revenge every second. Long ago, there was a small but prosperous tribe known as the Pygmies. Among them reigned Gerana, a beautiful and proud queen. Her beauty was such that even the gods noticed her, but it was her arrogance that finally attracted the attention and wrath of the goddess Hera. Gerana, intoxicated by her own beauty, claimed to be more beautiful than the goddess herself. Murmurs of her vanity quickly reached Olympus, where Hera could not allow such insolence. Determined to punish Gerana for her arrogance, Hera descended to the mortal world, ready to teach her a lesson she would never forget. One night, as Gerana was admiring herself in the mirror, Hera appeared before her in all her splendor. Gerana fell to her knees, but her fear did not calm Hera's fury. With a wave of her hand, Hera transformed Gerana into a crane, a beautiful bird with white feathers and a long neck. But the punishment did not end there. Hera decreed that the Pygmies, unaware that the crane was their former queen, would see her as a threat and pursue her relentlessly. Gerana, now a crane, found herself alone and rejected. The Pygmies, unaware of her true identity, constantly tried to hunt her down. From Olympus, Hera watched in satisfaction, convinced that her lesson had been learned. You probably know the story of the Trojan War, the famous Trojan horse, or the legend of Achilles and his sinew. But do you know what caused all this? Well, if you have been paying attention during the video, the answer is clear. Once again, the jealousy of Hera? Seriously. She has earned the title of the most toxic goddess of all times. The history of the Trojan War is full of heroes, tragedies, and mighty gods. One of the most famous causes of this epic war can be traced back to an incident known as the Trial of the Golden Apples. It all began at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, where all the gods were invited except Eris, the goddess of discord. Resentful at being excluded, Eris burst into the feast and threw a golden apple into the middle of the banquet, with the inscription, "For the most beautiful." 3 goddesses claimed the apple: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Zeus, to avoid further conflict, decided that Paris, the prince of Troy, known for his beauty and impartial judgment, would be the one to decide which of the 3 goddesses deserved the golden apple. Each of them tried to bribe him with tempting promises. Athena offered him wisdom and skill in war. Hera promised him power and dominion over all Asia, and Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris, seduced by Aphrodite's promise, gave the apple to the goddess of love. This act unleashed the fury of Hera, who felt deeply humiliated and snubbed. Hera vowed that Troy would pay dearly for Paris's decision. In time, Troy's fate began to crumble. Helen, the most beautiful woman, was abducted, or eloped, with Paris, which provoked the wrath of Menelaus, the king of Sparta and husband of Helen. Menelaus, along with his brother Agamemnon and other Greek kings, gathered a large army and set out for Troy to retrieve Helen, sparking the Trojan War. Hera fervently supported the Greeks in their effort to destroy Troy. From Olympus, she used all her influence to ensure that the Trojans suffered and were eventually defeated. He allied himself with other gods, such as Athena and Poseidon, who also had their own grudges against Troy. During the 10 years of war, Hera manipulated events, inspired Greek heroes, and turned the favor of the gods against Troy. Her hatred of Paris and her desire to punish the Trojans never wavered. Even at critical moments in the war, Hera intervened directly, helping the Greeks gain the upper hand in important battles. Eventually, the city of Troy fell by the trickery of the wooden horse, a strategy devised by Odysseus and supported by the Greek gods. Greeks hiding inside the horse opened the gates of Troy, allowing the Greek army to invade and destroy the city. The Trojans were slaughtered, their city razed to the ground, and the survivors taken as slaves. And despite all the death and destruction, this would not be by far her worst revenge. because there was a time when she almost managed to destroy the world itself. Both gods and mortals were in danger because of Hera's impulses, jealousy, and desire for revenge. No matter how much the goddess did, Zeus always found a way to disrespect her. His infidelities and capricious behavior had brought her to the limit of her patience. In an act of desperation, Hera decided to turn to one of the most fearsome beings that had ever existed, Typhon. This gigantic monster, born of Gaia, the earth, and Tartarus, the underworld, was a force of pure destruction. Typhon was a terrifying creature, with 100 fire-breathing dragon heads whose voices echoed the roar of wild beasts. His size and strength were incomparable, capable of reaching for the stars and shaking the foundations of the world. Hera, in her desire to see Zeus suffer, used her power to free Typhon from his underground prison. Once free, the monster ascended towards Olympus, launching a ferocious attack on the gods. Flames and screams echoed throughout the sacred mountain as the gods struggled to defend their home. Zeus was immediately engaged in a titanic battle against Typhon. Despite his power, Zeus found himself in a desperate struggle, his thunderbolts barely affecting the monstrosity before him. The struggle between the two spread throughout Greece, causing earthquakes and storms as they clashed. The other gods, though powerful, also struggled to contain Typhon's fury. Hera watched from the shadows, with her heart torn between desire for revenge and fear for the destruction she had unleashed. Her hatred of Zeus had clouded her judgment, and now she saw the consequences of her actions. Finally, after a seemingly endless battle, Zeus mustered all his strength, and with one last devastating bolt of lightning, struck Typhon with such force that the monster was hurled back into the depths of Tartarus, sealed once again for all eternity. Olympus fell silent in the aftermath of the storm, its gods exhausted and its temples damaged. Zeus, wounded but victorious, confronted Hera, and though furious at her betrayal, understood the pain she had felt for centuries. This is the end of this video, but not the end of the story of Hera's revenge. As there are many more to see, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss them.